YouTube channel Native Coder. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about valid JSX syntax. We'll see what is a valid JSX syntax and what children expect. Let's just dive into the lecture. So you can see from the previous lecture, we have the state and we have some posts over here. And we are dynamically rendering the posts through the map function over here. But what we are doing over here is we are unwrapping these posts, basically the data of the post, into the JSX elements over here, and then we are returning the JSX component over here. Then this map function returns an array of the JSX elements. If we have a map function over here, for example 1 2 3, and then we map word, so for each number, if we modified, so in our case what we are doing is we are returning a JSX element, but for now let's say that we are multiplying each number by 2, and when I hit enter you can see that an array is returned and each number is multiplied by 2 and we're getting the result. So this is basically the case with the JSX elements as well. So when we are mapping through the posts over here, so each post data is enwrapped into a JSX element over here, and then we are returning the JSX element, an array of JSX element from the map function. And you can see that over here. When we look into the DOM tree, you can see we have the root div component, which is basically this div component. And in here, we are returning 3 posts, and each will have the border 1 pixel solid black. And then we have h1 tag, h3 tag, and then h3 tag again. And it is repeated for all of these 3 posts, you can see. What happens if we return the post as it is? And instead of doing this, mapping through to the list, can we simply do this? Let's say. So when I refresh it and I go to the console, you can see we are getting an error that says objects are not valid as a React child. So basically, if you want to render a JSX, so we need to pass a valid JSX element into this. As far we have seen that we can write our expressions over here. Let's say we have different variables over here. Let's create a variable that, let's call it, for example, num, and I'll put 1 2 3 over here. And let's say I have another number that's called num2, and for example that's 4 5 6. Then I can simply print them within this curly braces, and I can simply do num, and I'll comment it out, and I'll get it printed over here. You can see 1 2 3, and I can also do the JavaScript expressions, like I can multiply 2 numbers over here, and I get the result. So that I can do, that is basically valid. But when it comes to the JSX element, you cannot just print the objects over here. So you can write your expression over here like this. You can add them, you can multiply them, you can subtract them, or even if you want, you can simply change this. For example, I have another variable that's called bool, and I would say this. So for example, I can write some conditions over here, and based on this, for example, if I say if it is true, then return this, otherwise return this value. So this is also a valid syntax in JSX. When I refresh, you can see 1 2 3 because bool is true. If I make it false, then you will see the second value, that is basically the 4 5 6. So we have those certain constraints of rendering JSX elements. And for example, we have another variable that's called obj, and it's basically an object as well. So if I want to print this, let's say it has a name property that is called John, and if I want to render it, so I can now do simply like this. And if I refresh it, you'll see that we are getting the same error over here. So in order to make it work, we can simply do json.stringify. So we need to stringify this first, and if I want to render it in a nicer way, then I can do that as well. But for now, I'll just print it like that. So in order to make it work, your expression is evaluated and converted to string or the JSX element itself. So you have to keep in mind that we have this array of posts, this.state.posts. So we have this array of posts, but since they are not valid JSX elements, so that's why we are doing the map over them, and we are converting each post to the JSX element itself, and then we are returning the JSX element. And that's what you have seen. Yeah, when I save it, you can see all of the posts over here. In the future, if you face that kind of error that says like objects are not valid as React child, then make sure that you're returning a valid JSX element, or if you're returning a value or something like that, then make sure that the expression is evaluated and it is returned as a value, so that won't cause that error. So I hope that you have learned something new in this lecture. Please like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next lecture.